How does a video game tell a story without words? This may seem like a bit of a weird question to ask within the context of the modern gaming industry. We're frequently bombarded with exposition, backstory, denotations, and explanations for absolutely everything. This oftentimes goes beyond necessary story-driven dialogue and character development and can make a game's story feel like you're just walking from place to place to hear different characters monologue the plot at you. This is an incredible underutilization of the interactive medium, not to mention boring and often unnecessary. Why do we get the long-winded explanation for the origin of the Reapers in the Leviathan DLC for Mass Effect 3? Was it a panic response that they thought would fix the massive backlash against their poorly received endings? Well, maybe if we throw more exposition and more explanations at everyone, it will fix the problem, as though not understanding the convoluted backstory was the root of everyone's problems. Modern storytelling in games is not utilizing the medium to its fullest, or even its middlest. Games are at their strongest when you're experiencing, moving, and interacting, not standing around listening to someone else NPC explain stuff to you. What's worse is that this method of writing is training us to be lazy gamers who depend on the developers to spoon-feed us answers and explanations so we can have all of our canonical ducks in a row instead of relying on our own inquisitiveness, imagination, and exploration to fill in the gaps for us. And this is why Hyper Light Drifter is one of the most refreshing games I've played in years. Hyper Light Drifter is an indie title conceived of and developed by Alex Preston. It follows the Drifter, a neo-futuristic cyberpunk Link who's on the quest to... Actually, it's never entirely certain. In fact, not a lot is certain in Hyper Light Drifter. The game commits to withholding details to a degree that is shocking to you if you've been playing games like Fallout 4 for months like I have. There's a short tutorial to go over the basic mechanics and an intro movie. The only thing that's clear is that there were giant robots at some point, but there aren't anymore. There's an explosion, a dog, the ruined remains of some sort of technologically advanced society, and the Drifter is sick. This mirrors Alex Preston's real life, who was born with a heart condition that's been a constant stress on his health for his entire life. There's never any direct explanations given for anything. Why is the Drifter sick? Why are they on their quest? What are these things you're picking up? Where do you go? Who are these people? Who are those people? Who is this boss? What do they want? Who made the giant robots? How did they die? What are we doing? These are all questions that go unanswered. What little plot explanations there are delivered without words in vague comic panels that give you some insight into the recent history, but never is anything directly explained. Even figuring out what the game's central currency is and how doors work and how to use skills is all done non-verbally. The Wikipedia entry for the game even seems to misstep on this, claiming that the Drifter is looking for a cure for their disease, which is never implied nor stated outright. Preston was heavily inspired by games like Link to the Past and Diablo, but that's more about mechanics and pacing than narrative. Hyper Light Drifter also pulls quite heavily from the movies of Hayao Miyazaki, and in particular, Miyazaki's first breakthrough film, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Actually, pulls quite heavily from may be a bit of an understatement. The similarities are too many to mention here, but maybe I'll touch on it again if I ever do a plot theory video. It's an important influence to bring up, however, because Miyazaki frequently plays with storytelling conventions and is a master of incorporating nonverbal storytelling and body language into his tales. What's most important to note, though, is that his worlds are complex and unique with their own rules and hierarchies specific from movie to movie, with elaborate backstories and characters with long-standing relationships with one another. And yet they feature almost no exposition dumps like we see in video games, which also present us with fantastic worlds with absurd and complex precepts that you have to buy in order to enjoy them. And yet video games rarely have the confidence to let their game worlds that they've created stand on their own merits. Why is this? Miyazaki isn't above giving us information when we need it, of course. Just like the tutorial for Hyper Light Drifter creates a safe space to get familiar with the controls, and the introduction gives you a sense of the setting. It's just that the information Miyazaki gives you in a movie like Valley of the Wind is situationally relevant. You don't need to know exactly how or why the robots were created or how they were destroyed. We don't need to know what pollution created the forest, or why the giant bugs are giant, or even what country we're in. That's not relevant information for the story story about warring remnants of humanity who are left squabbling for what scraps of livable space are left. If Valley of the Wind were developed by BioWare, by the end of the movie you'd know exactly which caterpillar evolved because of what radioactive isotope to be the size that it is, exactly why and how Lord Yupa became a master swordsman, and the entire point of the story would have been lost for nothing. This is precisely the problem with the current model of hyper-explanation by the games industry. They get so wrapped up in their no gamer left behind design philosophy that they lose sight of what they're even supposed to be doing. Developers are so risk-averse that they're afraid to leave any stone unturned, any corner undarkened, and any detail left unexplained. It's how we end up with techno-babble nonsense like the canon explanation for how Halo rings work, or even more harmfully, DLC like Leviathan that foolishly removes any dramatic Lovecraftian impetus from their primary antagonist by showing you their creators in an effort to appease our perceived need to know and understand everything. They undermine the central principle that makes things threatening: the unknown. Time to talk in a video game is largely limited. Every time someone opens their mouth for dialogue, you're cutting into the experience of gaming. That means everything you learn and know should serve either the gameplay experience directly or tie directly into the story itself. If you're writing a game story and are dropping some sort of information, you have to ask yourself, is this adding to the experience? Or is it merely filling in a gap where someone's imagination would have sufficed? Hyper Light Drifter manages to tell a completely coherent story while stating the barest minimum possible. Do I think all games should be this vague and withholding? Of course not. If Hyper Light Drifter is a Minecraftian success, do I expect to see hundreds of bad clones trying to lean on the crutch of obscurity to carry their story like Donnie Darko? You bet. There are definite weaknesses to this approach, too. There are times where Hyper Light Drifter can be incredibly frustrating because you don't know what the hell to do, and I don't think that's entirely the fault of the player, but rather a failing of the developer to properly convey their message to us. It's not perfect, and I'm not trying to espouse any sort of elitist every AAA title should aspire to be an artistic indie masterpiece filled to the brim with artistic integrity and bold choices ideas. I don't think every game should drop dialogue or even eliminate their codexes. There's a lot of fun to be had digging through game lore arcana. But I also think the modern AAA industry can learn a thing or two about how to maximize the interactive medium without taking the huge risks that games like Undertale and Hyper Light Drifter did. That not relying on the same formula over and over can pay off. That not holding our hands and letting us learn for ourselves can actually enhance the games, not detract from them. Video games have an enormous potential to transport us to magical, fantastic places. But it's important to not forget that at the end of the day, our imaginations still do most of the heavy lifting. Let them. We can do it. And I don't think we should accept lazy writing as just the norm. We shouldn't have to. Hey there everyone, thank you for watching my video on Hyper Light Drifter. It wasn't really a review so much as an analysis of its trends and its contribution to game design, and hopefully we see more indie titles that put some pressure on AAA titles to up their game a little bit. That would be really cool to see. If you like this video, be sure to like it, and if you have not subscribed to our channel, you should subscribe to it. Down there is a subscribe button. Oh, goodness, I'm heading to PAX tomorrow. Actually, I'm gonna be heading to PAX probably when you're watching this, but yeah, I've been going crazy. If you liked this video or other videos of ours more than you could ever express in a comment, or by liking or subscribing, you're just like, the only thing that would work would be, I don't know, to part with my money and support these artists, then you can go to our Patreon page and contribute whatever you can, and we will accept, and we'll keep making videos. Videos like this, videos like The Storyteller, which should be coming back sometime. It's been so long. It's been so long. Yeah. You haven't played Hyper Light Drifter yet, you should. That's an endorsement. I really enjoyed it. If you look at it and you're like, oh, I hate top-down action-y stuff, then maybe don't. But I enjoyed it, and I never even liked any Zelda games, so there you go. All right, that's it for me. Bye.